Snap, Crackle, Pop. With your host, Leslie Lugosi. Thanks for listening.
Today I'm talking with drummer and music historian from Athens, Georgia, Paul Butchart.
Hello.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for coming to my podcast.
Thanks you for inviting me.
And how did you end up in Athens, Georgia?
I came here in 1977 after I graduated high school. I came here to attend the University of Georgia and go to school like everybody else did back then.
And how did you become part of the music scene here?
The music scene in Athens in 1977 was primarily cover bands playing other people's music, playing at various social functions and stuff. Sure, a few bands had original music, but I personally, when I came to college, I was listening to Boston, Styx, Wings Over America, bands like this. And I bumped into a friend from high school, and he introduced me to bands like Roxy Music, New York Dolls, David Bowie. And I was like, oh, this is all really cool. I like that. So we kind of, one day we were at his sister's house. She was in the art school, Karen Swartz, and we were listening to records, my friend from high school and I. And she said, oh, if you like those bands, you'd probably like this band called the B-52s. They're from Athens. And I was like, oh, cool, yeah, we'd love to see them. And at that time, they had only played house parties and stuff like that. So it wasn't until January of 1978 that Kit and I went to see the Sex Pistols play in Atlanta. Then a week later, the B-52s played in Atlanta, and that was the first time I saw the B-52s. At that time, the people interested in that music were a lot of the artists at the university, and the crowd was really small. So if we went to a Devo concert in Atlanta, we would see somebody that's in our English class, say, or we just sort of coalesced as a friendship prior to becoming in the music scene. We sort of had to create our own scene, basically, because none of the clubs really wanted to have the kind of music we were listening to at the time. It wasn't about how well you could play, but how original you could play.
Glasses in your hand. Don't know what you're doing. No, I don't understand. You're leaving your house and you're walking outside. Gotta come along, 'cause I'm going for a ride.
The band we opened for, I guess, it didn't even have a name, because they never thought they would need one because it was going to be a one-shot gig, play a birthday party and then be on their way. But circumstances were such that the tap was stolen at the party, and we had to raise money to buy a new beer tap for the kegs. And at that second show, the band that we opened for chose a name, and that was R.E.M. And that happened at the old Caledonia location, what at the time was called the Coffee Club. In the spring of 1980, after the Side Effects had debuted and R.E.M. had debuted, at that time there was only one place to go hear the new wave or alternative music, and it was a club down the street called Tyrone's, and they would have bands play once a month on a Tuesday night, and they called it New Wave Night. And it's like, oh boy, all the new wavers are going to come. Well, they didn't like us because none of us had any money, and we'd usually end up drinking the beer the band got for free. Paul Scales was the manager of the sandwich shop that was underneath a club that was known as the Crow's Nest. And the Crow's Nest wasn't happening anymore. The sandwich shop had a beer license. So Paul suggested, well, why don't we just build a bigger stage upstairs when we'll have bands play upstairs, and we'll use the beer license from the sandwich shop upstairs. And that's where the first official business known as the 40 Watt Club East opened. And it was called East because it was east of the original location, which was on the third floor of what is currently the Grill building. And it was at a Halloween party in 1978 that a band called Strictly American from Marietta was playing, and people were standing around in the space going, wow, this is a great space, what a great place for a concert. We ought to call it something. And a guy named Bill Tabor said, oh, it looks about like a 40 Watt Club to me. And so that was where the name 40 Watt Club was coined. Now, it wasn't an official club at that time. It was just the name of Curtis's art studio, basically. Because at that time in Athens, you couldn't live upstairs above any of the businesses downtown. And it was mostly for the reason that the fire department didn't have a ladder that could reach up high enough if they had to rescue people and stuff. So the university got together with many of the landlords and arranged for artists at the university to rent out studio space in the old buildings downtown. So on the second floor, Randy Bewley and Michael Husky had a space, and it was there where PYLON came together as well, 1978. So the 40 Watt Club East opened, and it was a fun place to go hear music. And as things evolved, business that was under the former 40 Watt decided that they didn't want to have a club upstairs unless we got our own business license and stuff like that. But we're like 20, 22, 23-year-old kids. And it was like, we didn't see any of us for getting a business license. We got to go to school. And so at that time in November-ish, December of 1980, the 40 Watt closed. And everybody thought that would be the end of it until the spring of 1981, when somebody finally got a business license for the old coffee club space. We built 2 bathrooms. We put in plumbing. The old bathroom was just a sheet of plywood with a toilet behind it, basically. And so it was improved plumbing for bar sinks and stuff like that, coolers for beer. And that opened up as the 40 Watt Club, the third version of the 40 Watt Club. And it lasted for 3 years till the scene started getting too big for that small space. And fortunately, another club had gone out of business downtown known as Smokes. And so that space became available. And with new partners and everything, it moved to that location, became the 40 Watt Club Uptown. And lots of great bands played there over the years. And a lot of the footage for the Athens Inside Out movie was filmed in that location. Then it moved back to Clayton, and now it's in its location since 91 or so. I worked the door at the 40 Watt Club for several years and helped build the physical structures of the 40 Watt Club, building stages or cutting holes in the floor to run plumbing and stuff like that. So one thing that's interesting is kind of the gay undertones to the Athens music scene, because it was it was an open-minded crowd. A lot of them were artists and things like this. And doing some research over time, it's a history that goes way back. The one club I remember, there was a discotheque that kind of had the reputation of being a gay discotheque downtown, and it was the only place to go to hear like new music from a DJ. And he'd play Donna Summer, Gloria Gaynor, and then he would play Talking Heads and Devo and things like that. So it was a fun place to go. So there's always been the little gay subculture bubbling under. Then in 1972, there was a group formed on campus called the Committee on Gay Education. And what the group was to try to educate people that the gay lifestyle is nothing to be afraid of. And this was in 72, but there had been a little underground subculture since the late 60s. And to introduce their organization to the university, they wanted to have a concert with a drag performer performing and everything like this. And when the university found out who the group was and what they were promoting, they tried to cancel the show. Well, the promoters took the university to court. And they went to court and they presented their arguments as to freedom of speech and stuff like that. And at the end, the judge said, well, I can't really make a decision right now. And I guess since the concert's already scheduled to happen, it should go on. So they actually ended up having the concert. And it was an opportunity for people of the same gender to dance with each other and things like that. And there really wasn't anywhere where they could feel comfortable in Athens at that time. There wasn't really a gay club. And however, there was a club out in the countryside known as the Hawaiian Hali. And it was an African-American discotheque that was in the Jediah J. Harris Model School. A lot of people would go out there to dance and have a good time. And that place and that sort of lifestyle that it represented was what was the influence for the B-52 song Love Shack. Yeah. Yeah. And because it had a tin roof, a rusty tin roof, and Cindy says, I was thinking of that building when I came up with that line. And so that was pretty cool. And then the university became more accepting of people like that. And what's funny is the next day in the Red and Black, they did a review of the concert, and they interviewed somebody who called themselves the Space Fairy. And so hey, what do you think of this, and all this? And the Space Fairy, it turned out, was actually Keith Strickland, who would eventually join the B-52s later on. So that was pretty funny.
Cool. So you also do music tours in Athens.
I subcontract with the Athens Welcome Center if anybody wants to book a tour. And some people contact me online, and if I'm available, I'll do private tours. And those are a little longer than the usual tours booked through the Welcome Center.
Versus